Let's go back 15 years. I was 20 at the time, starting my final year in college, preparing for business or law school. I was on the baseball team, had a high GPA, and great parents. My extended family was filled with business and law-minded people, so life was good. One day after baseball practice, I checked my phone and found hundreds of missed calls and texts, ranging from "pick up now" to "you monster." Confused, I thought it was a prank. I stepped outside to call my mother, but as soon as she picked up, she was screaming. Then, my uncle appeared out of nowhere and punched me in the face, yelling he was going to kill me. My nose bled profusely, and my dad, restraining my uncle, told me to get home. That drive home was horrible. With my nose broken, eyes swelling, and confusion setting in, I walked into our house to find my entire family there. My mother was screaming, asking why I did it. My uncle was shouting to call the cops. I had no idea what was happening. I finally yelled, asking what was going on. My cousin Amy, who was 12 at the time, claimed I had assaulted her during a 4th of July party earlier that year. I denied it, but no one believed me. My dad snapped and punched me in the gut, knocking the wind out of me. He told me to leave, throwing my clothes out in garbage bags. Crushed, I loaded my stuff into the old van my parents had given me for transporting gear. I called a few teammates and crashed on a sofa for the night. I tried calling my family, but there was no answer for a week. Finally, my dad sent a text telling me to leave them alone, calling me a monster and saying to rot in hell. I can't describe how I felt. It was cold and numbing. A few weeks later, the university called, saying my tuition was due. My parents had been helping with the payments, but now I was blocked from contacting them. With little savings, I had to quit the baseball team and find a full-time job to pay the remaining balance. I found an overnight shift, lived in my van through the harsh winter, and managed to graduate. No one showed up or called me. That night, sitting in the van, I broke down, buying multiple bottles of whiskey and spiraling into a dark place for 2 years. I bounced from job to job, my mental health crushed. Whiskey and drugs became my friends. I trusted no one and ran away in fear whenever I saw a child. Summers and winters were brutal, and it's a miracle I didn't freeze to death, die from dehydration, or get mugged while sleeping in the van. Then, my van died. The AC and heat that kept me safe were gone. I couldn't go on like this anymore. Desperate, I went to the roof of an apartment complex, climbed to the edge, and was ready to jump. I looked at my phone, praying someone from my family would call or text to save me. Closing my eyes, ready to be pain-free, I heard a voice behind me say, "Stop." I looked behind and saw a woman running toward me, pleading for me to climb down. My mind raced, my body conflicted. She extended her hand, begging me to climb down. It felt like a spirit took over me, and I reached out, climbing down and collapsing. EMTs were called and took me to the hospital. I spent 2 days there before being released. As I walked out, the woman who had stopped me was waiting. She ran up, asking if I was okay. My mind froze, and I just said no. She asked if I had any family to come get me. I said no. She asked if I had a place to stay. Again, I said no and started walking away. "Where are you going?" she asked. "I don't know." "Well, are you hungry?" "No." "Do you know any other words besides that one?" "Don't know." "Well, you can't just live on the streets tonight. Come over to my place, and I'll cook you dinner." "Why?" "Because you look like you need a friend." "Okay." Her apartment was beautiful, filled with books and historical paintings, like a museum. She introduced herself as Rachel, 22, and worked at her dad's company. We talked for what felt like days, though it was only 3 hours. I avoided discussing my past. I stayed with her for 3 weeks as she helped me get a job at her father's company as a front desk worker. During that time, I gave up drinking and went cold turkey on the drugs. Rachel drove me to work every day, made me breakfast and dinner. We spent a lot of time together in those 3 weeks. I started looking for my own place, telling her she had done enough. She told me to stay. I asked why she was so nice to me. I started yelling and crying at the same time. She took my hand, told me to sit, and tried to hug me, but I pulled away, muttering that I didn't deserve it. She begged me to stay until I saw a therapist. My mind broke again. I guess I was walking in circles, muttering before I stopped and realized where I was. I then said yes. For 4 weeks, I saw a therapist that Rachel paid for. I didn't fully open up, but talked enough to make strides. Rachel then invited me to her parents' house for her dad's birthday. The party was filled with Rachel's family. Memories of that night raced through my head. I sat alone most of the time, drinking water and finding ways to hide in the bathroom. When we all sat down in the family room, they kept asking me about my family and my past, over and over again. I snapped. They disowned me for allegedly assaulting my cousin, which I did not do. No one will ever believe me, and I'll just walk this world alone. I was beaten by my own father, and my family cast me aside into this cold world to die alone. Please, let me leave this place. I don't deserve it. Forget I ever came here. I ran to the door and tried to open it when Rachel's father grabbed my shoulder. I collapsed to the floor, waiting to be punched, tears streaming down my face. Slowly, I opened my eyes and saw him. Go ahead, hit me, I whimpered. Rachel's father, John, spoke, son. I look into people's eyes for a living. I see when people are lying or being truthful. I can see the hurt and truth in your eyes. Please, let us help you. Please stay. I let out a noise I never want to make again. I collapsed into his arms, and the whole family gathered around me. I finally felt wanted. The next few years flew by. Rachel and I married. Her father, Phil, helped me go to business school. I got a great job at his company, bought my first car and house, and remained 7 years sober. We were expecting our first baby boy. I was in therapy twice a month now. It felt like life was finally letting me be free. I treated Rachel like the queen she is, the one who reached into the dark to save me. Then came the infamous call. I was in my office when my cell phone rang. I didn't look at the caller ID and just answered, "Hello? OP, is that you?" "Oh my God, OP," a voice said. "Who is this?" "It's Mom." I hung up the phone and nearly threw it. The thoughts raced through my mind, and I couldn't control them. The phone rang again. I sent it to voicemail. I called Rachel, and she drove to my office, calming me down. My phone was blowing up with calls and texts. I had to shut it off. That night, I turned it back on, and there they were, the texts and calls, similar to last time. This time it was, "Call us, please. I am sorry. Forgive me." But it was a message from my mother that froze me. I deleted the message, but it basically said, "OP, please answer the phone. We need to speak and see you. We have always loved you and prayed for you." Amy, now 19, came forward and told the truth about what happened all those years ago. We are so angry with her and want to make it right. We just wanted to protect her since she was just a kid and thought we were doing right. Please call us. After 2 weeks of thought and seeing my therapist every day, I decided I needed to see my parents. I texted them the time, place, and to come alone. No other family members. I wrote down every question I needed to know. My wife and I practiced talking so I could stay calm during the conversation, with a plan in place so she could quickly get me out if I lost my temper. The day we met at a coffee shop, my mom and dad ran up to me, arms open. My wife stood in the way and told them, "No hugs, please. Sit." My wife ordered me a Coke and ice to chew on while they talked. She held my leg as I began to speak. "Why?" I asked. They explained that a few weeks ago, Amy called a family meeting and confessed that she lied about what happened. She was young and stupid, just wanting attention and love from family members and strangers. She got to go to Disney World, Europe, big parties, received a new car, money, and lived a luxurious life while I lived in hell. Over the past year, all the fake stories of false allegations and what happens to people who are falsely accused scared her. She quickly thought of me and wanted to find me but knew that meant telling the truth. Why wasn't I allowed to tell my side? I asked. They were running on pure emotion and just wanted to be there for her and her parents. My father apologized for hitting me, explaining he was just so angry at the situation and took his anger out on me. He shoved me away when I tried to come back. Do you remember it all? I wasn't even at the 4th of July party. I was playing baseball in another state. Their faces froze and went white. My mom nearly threw up. My dad stammered, No. You were there, right? I showed them a picture of me and my friends from that day. Second, Why was my college tuition canceled along with my meal plans? My mom looked puzzled. No, we kept that for you. My dad froze again. I wanted to support my brother, he explained. The money meant for your school and food. I gave to him. That's why they went on all those trips and got new cars. My mom screamed. I explained everything. My mom begged me to stop talking. My dad looked broken. I detailed what my life had become, all my issues and fears of life. I explained how I had to drop out of baseball to find a job. It broke them. People around us seemed to hear this conversation and gave them the evil eye. I finally asked, so what is her punishment going to be? She has to apologize and make it up to you, they said. How? How about she lives in a van for 2 years, gets disowned, makes a public announcement, or better yet, pays back all the money that was for school and food. Maybe sends us to Disney World, Europe, and buys us new cars. She can't do that. She has her whole life ahead of her. We can't destroy it. She destroyed mine. No, that is different. What's different? Say it. No, please stop. Oh, I get it. It's okay to destroy a life, but when it's time to pay the piper, she gets the worst punishment of all. That was bad, Missy. Don't do that again. Now let's go get ice cream, right? That was the convo, right? I was done. I had my piece. I stood up and said, you lost your son 7 years ago. He is gone. Move on. Forget about him. And enjoy your life since you already did it for 7 years without him. Mom, Dad, goodbye. My wife and I walked out, leaving them at the table in tears. I haven't seen them since. I get phone calls and messages from time to time, wishing me well. From what I've seen on Facebook, Amy went to college but had to pay for it herself with no loans or backing. Her fancy car was taken away and was given a beater car from the 1990s. To be honest, it isn't enough, but I don't care. Maybe someday I will see her and them again, but not now. I still have a lot of healing to do.